What's cooking, Juventus fans? Welcome back to your old lady's favorite YouTube channel. Now today, the word of the day is going to be scandal. It follows me every single place I go in my fanhood. Not saying that I'm the reason for this, but everywhere I go, here locally, and now it's on the home front. Juventus embroiled in another scandal, another situation. Is this a witch hunt? Is it nonsense? Well, stick with us. We'll fill you in. But real quick, there's only one man who truly knows how I feel, and that is local newscaster Scott Reynolds. And here's what he has to say.
See their shit.
Ciao ragazzi, welcome back to the Bianconerizonechannel. My name is Justin Zofro. Today, it is Sunday, December 4th, 2022. I've got your latest rundown of all things Juventus. Before we do anything though, first do me a favor, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon, stay notified for all of our latest videos. Let's just go ahead and get into this. I was gonna go ahead and address my personal feelings on the scandal, what's going on, but I feel like a lot of the news topics today will cover that. I can get into it a little bit. Is it a little bit, am I a little bit, I don't know, I want to say it's a gray area for me a little bit. I need to get a little bit more well-versed exactly how some of these things work when it comes to Italian law, policy, and how that it really is situated, because we were talking about wiretaps. And here locally, I am, if you guys don't know, I am a private investigator. That's what I do with my day job. So as an investigator, I'm very well aware of the different policies and laws when it comes to privacy, when it comes to business, how can things be accessed, wiretaps, when are they allowed, when are they not allowed. I do not know exactly how it all works in the Italian system, in Italian legal policy. And if we're being honest, there's probably a lot of gray area when it comes to things in Italy and how they're able to do things and where they can and where they can't. So we're going to get a little bit more well-versed in that in the coming days. But as well right now, let's stick with this. We can talk about what is, how do you feel about it personally? That's what we'll say that. All right, let's get into it. The news for the day. The first couple are a little bit more lightheaded, but we will get into those, of course. Fabio Romano, very first news story, he is talking about the future of Samuel Illing Jr. with Juventus. He says that Juventus have reached a full agreement with him to sign a new deal valid until June of 2027. New contract is expected to be done and sealed soon, as reported. So good things there. Obviously, we saw a lot of positive things when he was healthy for Juventus. When he came into matches, he really gave a little bit of that boost that you need to see. Hopefully, he continued to do that at least until 2027. All right, let's continue on, though, and talk about another move in this Mercado, or the future Mercado, at least. And that, of course, is not going to surprise anybody here who's regularly on the channel or just lives and dies with the black and white. Nico Skinner is talking about Adrian Rabiot's future. His salary request right now is at 10 million euros a year to extend the contract, and they are considered much too high by Juventus, as we all expected, and as we know, if they even entertain this idea, it would be absolute insanity looking at the amount of money that he had and the opportunity cost. What has he given out there for Juventus in the past? You try to put this into him, and then what happens if he regresses to the mean that he usually has given out there for the club? The French midfielder could leave as a free agent at the end of the season. Let's go ahead and say he will leave at the club at the end of the season, right? Talking about those that could be leaving the club, let's go ahead and talk about the club itself. Could it be leaving the ownership as they currently stands with or obviously with the outgoing of Agnelli and everything that's happened there? John Elkann, does he even care about the club? Are the rumors out there, the ideas that he just kind of uses as a little toy that he does not really care that much about? Is he really not that invested with Juventus? Is it all about the dollars and cents that he's making over at Exor and the billions of euros that he has, that he's sitting behind, and he's living that cushy life? Well, Corriere dello Sport is saying that the club could be sold in the coming years. Juve is a fascinating story. The only club owned for over a century by the same family. Obviously, there was a period before that where it was not owned by the Agnelli family, but still, it has been for over 100 years under their ownership. Now, though, Exor is no longer a family company, and they need to convince shareholders that having Juve is a good thing, that it is making money, and that it has other things that it brings to the table outside of a drain on their pocketbooks. So something to keep an eye on. I think We've heard a slight update where it seems like Elkin is, pretty dead set on keeping it, and Exor will remain the owners with that as well. So hopefully some good things, but it's something to keep an eye out, because especially with all of the fallout from all of this. I hate to use scandal, the word again, but with all that, you could always see things like that happening. Let's continue on though, and talking about other players' purchases that could have happened in the past, and that is Tuto Sport reporting with all of the news, all of the wiretaps that have come out, all of the overreaching into emails and all that. If we know anything, if you're an American citizen and you know anything about emails, lock her up, right? I'm kidding. That's not my personal political opinion, but there's a lot of jokes and stuff with that. Did Russia steal the election, right? With all these different things right now, we have overreaching, or we have reaching into, again, I need to familiarize myself personally, and that's something I plan to do, with the legal concepts in Italy of what is allowed, what's not allowed. Are they overstepping in these boundaries, or is it more and more than okay? Obviously, trying to get their payment, their pay cut, but this also could bring down an entire system with Serie A if Italy are just getting a little bit too, I don't want to say greedy, because obviously everything with sport is, it's over the top when it comes to the amount of money that is spent on these players. But how important is the Serie A to Italy, or is the government that serious about wanting the correct amounts of money and wanting it now to make sure that it's all accounted for and that they're getting their cut, if you will. All right, we continue on. Tuto Sport says, from the interceptions, the wiretaps, the email overreaching, I say overreach, but you know what I mean. It was found in an email sent by Paratici to Cherubini that Zaniolo, Kumbula, Tonali, Malin, Kulusevski, Haaland, Donnarumma, and Milik were some of the names that Juve were following as far back as 2019. Obviously, a lot of these names will not surprise you. Obviously, how many of those names ended up at Juventus? Well, we can count them right now. 1, 2. 2 of those names. Kulusevski did, and of course Milik did. Donnarumma, Zaniolo, you know how I feel about that. And of course, our guy Haaland. What an absolute failure that was to not lock up Haaland when they could have done it years ago. I believe even before 2019 happened, or maybe it was right around that. I can't remember exactly, but that one, could you imagine having him here now? Let's continue on though, and let's talk about the more serious parts of this topic. Danilo had some comments about the wage system, the way that it was set up back during the 2019-2020 season, the one that was obviously sideswiped by the entire pandemic situation, and obviously the players, we all heard the news come out there back then about how the players were willing to assist the club by either deferring an entire month of payment and then potentially getting, I guess, 3 months postponed later. I think it's really what we're about to talk about. How did that work out? How was it done? Was it done behind closed doors? Was it done in a shady way? Anyway, with that, Danilo says, I think I was the last to sign in a room at Catanassa. I remember signing 3 copies of the same document, and it was reflected the agreement. 1 month was waived and 3 were postponed to the following season. So not really, I wouldn't say a terribly large amount of news coming out of this comment, because that's kind of what we remembered. Maybe a little bit, seems a little bit, I don't want to say shady, but a little bit of like, I was last to sign in a room at Catanassa. It's like they cornered your boy in a room there and said, you signed this deal. You're not making this money for this month, and then whatever. And remember, it was a different time back then. I remember we were living like this, and there was nothing to really even look at and be like, yeah, of course, they could waive a month because they weren't playing during this time. You're not doing anything. You got money. You're taken care of. All of you all have more than enough money. Though, again, this is not, it's not fair for me to look at it and say, well, this is how much I'm making every single month and every single year. Why do you get to make this much? Well, the reason is they have a skill and an ability that I do not have. So I'm sorry. That's how much they get to get paid off of it. Sorry that I don't get to make the same amount, right? So that's not anything great, earth-shattering, but again, 1 month was waived, 3 were postponed to the following season, and I think that was put out there. I don't know how legal that is, how this all can get done, but that was what was agreed upon back then. I think you can move that around. I don't see any serious issues with that. Again, not saying, okay, and I do want to say this real quick. This goes off with the whole topic of everything that's going on. I've heard from a lot of people the idea, and I've even said on this channel in recent years, my opinion that, obviously it's always Juve. Why always me? Why always Juve? Is this a witch hunt? Is this a situation that's just a bunch of nonsense, but it's Italy, it's FIGC, which does not appear to be the FIGC, but appears to be the governmental entities that are coming after Juve about the money, where it was spent. The Italy version, I guess, of the IRS. If you know the IRS, 3 letters that you do not want together and you don't want them coming at you at any point in your lifetime. But is this a situation where they're trying to make something out of nothing? I can't speak fully on that because it hasn't all come out yet. A lot of us are angry. A lot of us are upset. I get that. We should be. I feel a certain way about that because there's some point of it where I'm like, Juve, what are you doing? Obviously, something went wrong because all the board members resigned. They're fired. All the board members resigned, though, and were willing to step down. But you're telling me that nothing went down. We get a lot of these. And here's the interesting part. These are the wiretaps that have come out that they're showing, right? That are being showed, that the journalists are able to obtain. What are the ones that haven't come out? What do they have on them? And then as well on top of that is, where do we go from here? Because if one cookie crumbles, Juventus, every other club is doing the exact same thing during this time period. It was a weird time period. Things were done. Things were moved around. Things were shifted because money was at an all-time low coming into the club. You don't have butts and seats. You don't have all the things going on. They were not, competing in Champions League, all that, sitting out. All the people were destitute at this time. Let's not say Juve was destitute, but you know what I mean. So if Juve falls, then Inter, Milan, Napoli will come as well. That's why you see guys at the FIGC sitting there being a little bit quiet, being more protective of their old lady, or the old lady, not their old lady, because they don't love them, but than they normally would be. Usually they would be at the gates with pitchforks ready for this. Now you see, you hear the tight buttholes coming on because they know it could be them next. Anyway, we continue on with this, though, in the other commentary on Wiretap. Cherubini talking about Paratici. This is obtained by Gazzetta dello Sport. Said if Fabio woke up in the morning and had a headache or drank a glass, he could sign 20 million euros without telling anyone. It was dangerous. It felt like it was selling my soul because I wasn't accomplished to these things. Obviously, talking about how Paratici, obviously, we talked about that in recent videos on the channel, how Paratici bleeped Juventus. How he was not a good thing for Juventus. It was great. And we talk about it all the time, about how he signed these exuberant deals for these players. And they'd just be tied to the club for years and they'd be forced to pay out all this money and we'd be wasting money and wasting opportunities. Now you really start to see the fallout from that here. He goes on to say, I think another comment that he made, is talking about this, saying that at a certain point, he no longer had this filter. He didn't act for Paratici, but for Juve. He put Juve above himself, and he had you to carry out operations that you can't normally do, like the Spinazzola Pellegrini one. You cannot do it. So obviously just giving his criticism of the entire situation and how that went down. Now let's talk about the big elephant in the room before we get out of here, and that is, of course, CR7, Cristiano Ronaldo. He is not gone. Well, he's gone physically, but his ghost still haunts the halls of Catanassa. And as, of course, Gazzetta dello Sport is talking about what is going on. And here's the thing. This one does seem a little bit more nonsensical. This one does seem a little bit more witch hunty, if you will. We need to see where we sit with this, but overall, I'm not super worried about this story, if we're being real. But CR7 gets eyes, it draws headlines, so people are going to talk about it. The club owes CR7 19.9 million euros from during the pandemic era, 2019-2020 era where he was not paid. On November 4th, Cristiano Ronaldo officially demanded to see the documents and to be paid what he's owed from Juventus. So now he has come to collect from the club. Riva Bene claims that Juventus do not owe CR7 anything, and they said before that it's been taken care of. Well, now it appears that maybe it hasn't. We are not fully certain there, but it seems that CR7, who already made bukus of money from Juventus, from all of his other deals, he wants every damn cent, and he will bleed it dry. That's why right now, if you look at it, CR7's considering going, obviously, to Saudi Arabia to make, 200, 300 million euros per season, per season. let's not act like we have morals, or our laurels aren't very high, right? Anyway, Ronaldo can be forcibly involved as the investigators want to hear from him. And that's where it gets interesting. CR7 coming back to Italy, coming back to speak with investigators. And I don't know exactly how this will work. Obviously, he is in a different country right now. Right now, obviously he's playing the World Cup. He's been in England. Where will he go from here if he goes to Saudi Arabia? How does that work? Or is he going to be... obviously with the EU and Brexit and all that, I don't know exactly how that works, but can he be subpoenaed? Can he be whatever the terminology they use in Italy to force him to come back, force him to talk about it, especially if he does have money out there that he wants and he's demanding, then yeah, he will probably feel in every right to come back and to come speak and give his story. That does a few things. It ruins his entire relationship with the club. And by the club, I don't mean the club. Who cares about that? I mean with the fans that are supposed to love him and still care about him, like him. It went out poorly, but at the same time, does Ronaldo really want to leave that stain on one of the clubs that he at least can check off some trophies and things that he won in a time that he spent in Italy? So how big and how explosive can this get for CR7 and Juventus in the end? And the most important part, too, is obviously nobody can find the paperwork. Who can find the documentation to prove any of this? Where was it held? Where was it filed? How does Ronaldo's agent not have a copy of it? Does he not have that information on hand? You would imagine both sides would keep that information. So that's what I wonder, what's going on here. Is it just a news story by Gazzetta dello Sport to get attention, to get traction, and obviously get views and readership? I don't know. But stick with us. We're going to follow this each step of the way until this thing can be put to rest, put to bed, and then hopefully we can, of course, go back to just enjoying watching our old lady and actually talking about what's happening on the pitch. So here we go. I'll say this, in my experience of what happened with my local sporting, I guess my fanhood for a local team, it can last a long damn time. Like I'm talking 7 years, but this should not last that long. Obviously, this is nonsense, but let's go ahead and just get this out of the way. How do we feel about this in the circumstances going around with Juventus? I think it's just... sick of their shit. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you all for tuning in. As always, if you haven't already, do me a solid favor, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon, stay notified for all of our latest videos. You can also follow me at Justin Sofro on Twitter, follow bianconerizone, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. We'll see you guys next time. Forza Juve, Forza Bianconeri. Say hello to your old lady for me.